HBCU versus a PWI experience. Episode number 8. All right, Girly Nation, it is day 8 out of 10, and we are getting closer to the finish line. To some of you out there, going to an HBCU was really a no-brainer. I mean, you were born out of the womb knowing, or your parents decided you were going to an HBCU. And to others, your North Star for your undergrad was a PWI for many different reasons. Maybe you were at the top of your class. Maybe you received a lot of scholarships from a PWI. You probably also were seeking an Ivy League education. Maybe it was pressure from your parents to be their own bragging rights. And then lastly, you probably just had the desire to have additional exposure beyond what you grew up with. That's totally fair. But as a Black woman, especially at PWIs, you're going to find that many people might not take you seriously. But know that you are intelligent, motivated, and capable to do everything else. And you're qualified as well to do everything that everyone else is doing. You can literally reinvent yourself. Don't let someone tell you what Black people do and don't do either. The HBCU versus PWI experience is driven by two scenarios. Like myself, you probably went to a predominantly white high school. Maybe you grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood and you were just seeking the Black experience. And then conversely, you probably either grew up in an urban community or maybe in the suburbs, and you were just seeking a more international experience. That's fair too.
HBCU still produces the highest number of Black graduates annually. PhDs, JDs, baccalaureate, master's degree, more than perhaps even all the white institutions combined each year coming out of HBCUs.
But there's 5 things you're going to hear in today's episode from both students and professors. Number 1, the PWI high school to HBCU transition. Number 2, the urban community to PWI transition. Number 3, the differences between a PWI and HBCU institution. More from the Black perspective. Number 4, the sisterhood of an HBCU. Number 5, Nina's teachable moments. Ladies, are you ready to keep it 100? My hand is raised. How about yours?
Are you ready to keep it 100?
Ready to keep it 100, girl.
Oh, Nina, I keep it 100, baby.
Yes, I'm ready to keep it 100.
I'm ready to keep it 100, girl.
You know I'm going to keep it 100.
The next set of women you're going to meet saw nothing in their path but attending an HBCU. It was always her plan, and this college senior is going to share her story.
That was always the plan for me, and I don't even know really why. I came from a white high school, and I went through a lot there, so I just knew that an HBCU was the school for me. Like, they would have this, my career center would have these early admissions programs come to the school where different HBCUs would come, and then you would go and like get approved on-spot admission. That's what I meant. And they would have HBCU ones, and I just remember I was so excited. I had got into Norfolk, Lincoln, Eastern Shore. I just couldn't figure out where I wanted to go. I was just so excited. Yeah, HBCUs was definitely the thing for me.
As a freshman, she admits to knowing little to nothing about her ancestral history until she went to an HBCU.
You know, it's funny because I was thinking about that today. Coming as a freshman, I did not know a lot about African American history at all. And now that I'm a senior, I know so much. I've been introduced to so much. I've read so many books. Like, my whole appreciation for who I am and my race and my people has just increased so much. I'm forever grateful for my experience here. And I feel like every Black person should go to an HBCU, or just even, talk to someone from an HBCU, like talk to them about their experiences and stuff.
Next, she had her goals set really high on an HBCU. You couldn't tell her any different.
Yes, HBCU was my plan. Always. Morgan wasn't my plan. I wanted to go to North Carolina A&T. Yeah, but they put me on a waiting list.
Ah.
And it was like getting to the time where I had to choose. So it was either Morgan or UMES. So I really didn't want to go to University of Maryland Eastern Shore. It had my major, but it was just something, it was like a filler, and I didn't have to pay for my application for any of my schools because of the school program I was in high school. So I was like, I might as well just take this free waiver and apply to whatever I can and see what I can get into. But HBCU is definitely the plan. I love Morgan now that I go there.
Dr. Hilton went to both PWI and HBCU institutions, and currently he teaches at several PWIs. So you're going to get different angles from inside the classroom versus outside the classroom experience, and he's going to throw in some skill sets that people typically have.
The experiences are, from my perspective, vastly different, right? And so I think in an HBCU, you're not going to have that experience where you're either questioning your intellect to some degree or question what it is you're trying to do. It generally tends to have a much more what feels like supportive feel to it in general. Obviously, sometimes you can have more people who have similar backgrounds. In some instances, it's probably more diverse, contrary to what people think, because HBCUs generally tend to have people from all over the world. So it's going to be from the Caribbean, the countries of Africa, the United States, and so forth, as well as some white students. And people tend to overlook that. And so that brings to the classroom a much, much more diverse perspective on a wide range of issues, right? On the other side of being at a white institution, you might be a handful of Black students sitting in a classroom and always feeling as if, do you sort of measure up? Do I belong here? So even from a teaching standpoint now at white institution, I don't get that many, for example, Black males in my classroom. And when I do have Black students, there are only a handful of Black females. And so it sort of points to, I think, either we're having a situation where there are more people going to HBCUs, or we're just not enrolling in high numbers at the white institution. It is sometimes difficult to get African Americans and Black students to sort of focus at the white institutions for a whole host of different reasons. There's a lot of distraction. In many instances, they might be a first in their family to go to college, and as such, there are all kinds of things that they're having to try and navigate. I think that you're much more likely to get a lot more support at an HBCU because they're attuned to some of these issues, that you might be the first in your college, and there's certain cultural things that we're all trying to navigate. And so that would sort of be my backdrop in terms of or quick overview in terms of just differences in the classroom as well as sort of outside.
Professor Koch attended both an HBCUI and an Ivy League institution for graduate school. So she refers to the stereotypes and missions of each institution and how an HBCU provided a race-free environment when it came to learning.
I grew up, I am of Caribbean descent. I grew up in a majority white, middle class, upper middle class community in Southern California. Intentionally decided that I wanted my undergraduate experience to be very, very different than my secondary schooling, where I was the only person who looked like me up until the last semester of my 12th grade year in high school. No teachers, no influences of the like. And so I was specifically seeking a HBCU experience from influences of television, such as A Different World and The Cosby Show and so on and so forth. So my generation, I think, was largely influenced by the positive media that was produced from some of those types of media outlets. I attended Fisk University, one of the oldest historically Black colleges and universities based in Nashville, Tennessee. And from there, went on to New York City to matriculate at Columbia University, largely white, urban, Ivy League institution. So I've had vast experiences from a collegiate experience myself, and then on the other side in terms of teaching students of various backgrounds as well. And to echo Kevin's point, there are vast differences. Obviously, an HBCU's whole mission set, and by definition, really was to educate students of African or African American descent, and whereby PWIs, by their nature and subset and mission set, very, very different. So the support base looks different. The students look different, in my opinion, in terms of academically. I think that there are bright, gifted, talented students at both sets of institutions. When I look at the level of preparedness, expectations, and to some degree stereotypes, I think that it does look very, very different. I think that there are a lot of assumed stereotypes when it comes to students of color in comparison to white students. But I think that sometimes those stereotypes are fair, and sometimes I think that they are unfair. When I'm in a PWI environment, I think that the expectation is that for our white students or our fluent students, that they are to perform, at higher levels or at levels that exceed their Black counterparts. But in actuality, and I think that we can look at some statistical data and some sociological data as well that would actually point very differently in terms of the academic performance of students of color once they actually get enrolled, that they're adjusted and fully supported at any institution of higher education, that they can exceed their white counterparts academically and be quite successful, but that the margin of difference for many students of color happens to be a conversation around economics and being able to fund their educational opportunities in comparison to their white counterparts. That's the main difference. I personally enjoyed and loved my undergraduate HBCU experience. I would not trade that for anything in the world. For me, it had everything to do with cultivating a sense of who I was, absence of having to consider race or be bothered by race or have race be a distraction in the classroom. It was to our benefit. We were in a very safe environment, surrounded by instructors, professors, and people outside of the classroom setting who made it their business to ensure that not only did we graduate on time within that time frame, but that we were taken care of in terms of our whole self, that our wellness was taken care of and considered the entire time. Whereas in my experience being in a PWI setting, because not only do I have that experience in terms of from a teaching and instruction aspect, I actually had a time to be working as a graduate student as a director for residence halls at an all-female undergraduate institution that was largely white and extremely affluent. And in terms of looking at the day-to-day dynamics of the interactions from that collegiate experience compared to my own, and looking at their day-to-day, very different mission set, preparing them for very different types of opportunities, and all very fascinating and the like. But I think that as far as the purpose of historically Black colleges and universities, they are the only schools to this very day that are being questioned in terms of their significance in a 21st century environment. And that's a very important question, and one that I think that we need to continue on to have that conversation. But to your original question and whatnot, these two institutions in and of itself serve very different mission sets.
Our next guest went to a PWI and gives the pros and cons of her sisterhood experience. It's different when you're 1% of that student body.
So undergrad, I went to Michigan State University, and then for grad school, I went to Indiana University. Both of them were PWI. I think one thing that I enjoyed going to for undergrad at a PWI is just having more of an international, a bigger international, diverse interaction, because I grew up in a predominantly African-American community. So I think it gave me the urge to really start traveling, and I was able to make a lot more contacts as far as when I do go out of the country. I have friends in a lot more different places. So I think that's a pro. Con, I think one thing that I've noticed when you do go to a predominantly Caucasian PWI, sometimes it's hard to sisterhood or brotherhood that people get from HBCU. It's not quite like that at a PWI because it's so much smaller. Like it's usually, like at Michigan State, we were like 1% of the whole student body. And so if you were in engineering, you probably didn't really know too many other people once you started getting in your actual college. So, but it seems like at HBCU, they're so small, like that everybody knew everyone. And so you get this kind of, when you do get out, oh, she went to Spelman. No matter what year they went, they all know each other. Like, and I think that's great, especially like somewhere where there's so many of them dominant. Like here in DC, like Spelman, you can't go 2 steps without hitting someone from Spelman.
And what did you study? And
mechanical engineering.
And for undergrad?
Yeah, undergrad I did mechanical engineering.
And then grad, it was just your MBA, right?
MBA.
She went to an HBCU on a partial athletic and academic scholarship. Her North Star was to postpone the fun and focus while working and studying full time. She admits to having fun envy now, but college should not only be about getting a good GPA, it's all about the experience. It's 4 years of your life that you can't take back.
I went to an HBCU on a scholarship. It was partial academic and partial athletic to make up a full scholarship. I went to Virginia State University undergrad. That's right outside of Richmond. My major, I went in for business and I kind of kept my focus with communications and marketing. I'm still in that field today with a little twist. I'm a real estate broker, so I still have to use those skills to hone my business and run my business. My situation is a little different. I grew up in the suburbs. My neighborhood was predominantly white. When I moved in, we lived there for 30 years, to be 32 years this year. I was the only Black girl in my neighborhood out in nice little Charles County. So I didn't have that background of growing up with a lot of people that look like me, or I didn't have a lot of friends that look like me. That really didn't have much to do with my choice for college. I actually wanted to attend University of Virginia, and my guidance counselor kind of persuaded me to go to the Black school, even though I had the SAT skills and the grades to apply. She kind of discouraged me in applying for the PWI, which my mom got involved and it was kind of crazy. But I got into the HBCU. I ended up liking it, but I felt limited sometimes. The friendships, in my opinion, were there were good bonds there, especially with the sports teams and stuff. I played volleyball, I played tennis, and I ran track. So I met just about all the athletes on campus, female and male. But I still to this day feel like there's something missing as far as my interaction, my growth, and different things like that I probably would have experienced on a PWI campus. But I think a lot of what I've experienced in the HBCU has kind of driven the business that I run today and the people that I work with, and just all of the experiences that I went through in school. I didn't pledge or do anything like that. So, I was kind of on the outside looking in. It seems like in the HBCU, everybody's in a sorority or fraternity. I chose to join organizations and groups that dealt with, activists or different things like that. So my focus kind of was a little bit different in school. I also worked a lot. I worked probably like 20 hours a week, plus my full schedule. I took on 20 hours of credit hours per semester because I was a double major. So I just had a different drive. I didn't really attend many parties. There was a lot of them.
Welcome to the Modern Edgy Urban Store. This collection caters to modern, edgy urban men and women. No more gentrifying our genius. We own it. We consider ourselves people with an edgy, hip swag by nature. We are unapologetically ourselves. We are crushing it. All day, every day. We have an urban, sexy style. The modern, edgy urban store is now officially open to all men and women with an edgy urban style and swag. Summer tees and greeting cards are now available online. Visit modernedgyurban.com or follow us on Instagram.
So let's flip the script a little bit and talk about culture. We already talked about dorm life in episode number 6, but I thought you should hear the different perspectives and different experiences in a PWI versus HBCU setting. And I'm not inferring that one is better than the other, but it's also important to point out that this stuff happens everywhere. But let's start with the HBCU experience.
But I didn't realize that it would be such a huge topic, and that's trust. You can't trust everybody. So, I was one of those people, that got their books stolen in school because people were stealing books. Books are expensive. Hello, they're like $300 a semester. So you can steal somebody's books. You don't have to pay for them. And then you can sell them back at the end of the semester because they have this little truck that would take the books back and you'd get money back for them.
Right.
So I had some little chick steal my books out of my room. I'm just somewhere, I'm probably at the cafeteria or somewhere, and you have this nice roommate who opens the door for everybody, and my books get stolen. So that was my introduction to college, my freshman year, like just trusting my stuff in a room with somebody that I just met a couple of hours ago. So, goes without saying, you think that, okay, this is my roommate, things will be fine, I can leave my stuff in here, but you really have to worry about trusting people. And that was my first introduction. I had never had anything stolen, right underneath me, so now you're watching your back every time you make a move. And, I'm not saying, oh, this only happens at HBCUs. This happens on college campuses. Some people send their kids to school with nothing and they have to figure it out. Like me, I had to figure it out. Yeah, I had a college scholarship, but how was I going to make it through all the rest of the stuff? My mom wasn't fortunate enough to, supplement my scholarship. So I had to work, and I had to work for everything. Some people just they don't work for anything.
Yeah.
So, trust was a big thing for me, and it still is.
Next, you're going to hear about the PWI experience.
We had suites, so it was only me and my roommate, and then my suite mate, which were 2 other girls. We shared the bathroom, so it was only 4 people to a room, to one bathroom. So we just came up with a schedule as far as cleaning the bathroom out. Well, it was some good girls. We were I didn't know any of them. When I go into Michigan State, I was matched with somebody because none of a couple of my friends went, but I don't know how they do the dorms, but I ended up getting made it through Michigan State. So I had 3 Caucasian girls as roommates. So it was me and this other Caucasian girl from New York, and then 2 other girls. So we didn't have that problem, but I've heard that before. And then Michigan State gave us toiletries, toilet paper and all of that. So we didn't have the same type of experiences on that front. So, yeah.
On the identity side, she never had a teacher that looked like her. It's important to see people who look like us in positions of authority and higher education.
I came from a disadvantaged family background as well, single parent. We were on social services, when we were younger, very similar to the children that I served both in Baltimore and DC. However, my mom valued education. She knew that if I was going to get out of the circumstance that we were in, it was going to be through an education. And like Onika, I never had in California, I'm from Northern California, Sacramento, and I never had a teacher that looked like me. So on the identity side of things, I kind of questioned. I knew who I was because we had mentoring programs that taught us about our history and stuff outside of school. But as a teacher myself, it's important for a child to see someone who looks like them in a position of authority. And, we had secretaries, we had janitors, but never a person in the classroom that looked like me. So I was determined I was going to an HBCU. I did not apply to any schools in California. My mom knew I was leaving, and I left in 1997, and I haven't turned back. For my graduate degree, I went to the College of Notre Dame of Maryland, which is a predominantly white institution, and it was a very different experience. It was an excellent program for education administration and supervision. The work and the quality of what I received from the program was absolutely more than exceptional, but it was not like my experience at Morgan State University. And I think that they both play very important roles in the realm of education. But when we talk about the things that are happening as a culture, it's important those things get addressed at an HBCU where they may be overlooked or kind of swept under the rug in a predominantly white institution. But they do both play very important roles. I can't say enough how HBCUs are super important to education now in the 21st century.
This Howard student found her church home at Howard University.
I just love Howard for some reason.
Did you feel that way before you got there, or just got?
Yeah, I kind of did. So, yeah.
That's great that you found your church home.
All right, peeps. Whether you choose the PWI or HBCU route, there's so many teachable moments during this whole podcast series to take in. Outside of the brotherhood and the sisterhood experience, HBCUs produce the highest number of Black graduates coming from HBCUs. That is amazing. I'll say this, one thing I do admire from HBCU alumni is the sense of family reunion, no matter what time of year. The soul, the pride associated being part of a legacy institution catering to our community. Now you know there are pluses and minuses where that's concerned, and you've heard them during this series. But on a positive note, you have the sisterhood and brotherhood connections forever, no matter when you graduated. And that is admirable. I mean, looking back, I don't think I have any connections whatsoever to the schools I attended, and sadly, I really don't care. We have a few more days to go. And that said, this afternoon, you're going to hear a bonus episode from the professors. No one ever decides to talk to the professors and let them reveal what they're thinking but not saying out loud. Hope you enjoyed another episode of Educating Her. It doesn't end here, though. I have Girl Camp queuing up to launch this fall, so check it out by visiting bit.ly/capital K, capital I, lowercase bootcamp. New episodes drop every day, and in case you missed last week, you can tune into the Keep It 100 Girl podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, and TuneIn Radio. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, or the Keep It 100 Girl Facebook page, and you're going to use the handle @NinaBabel. Tell me you were here if you listened to an episode and what you learned. On tomorrow's episode, I decided to pick the brains of professors and find out what are some of the things they are seeing or not seeing from students nowadays, and advice of how you guys are being perceived in and outside the classroom, whether you realize it or not. I keep it 100, I keep it real, I keep it true. Smooches!